Both my parents came from villages in China to find a better way of life, to give me, their children, a better chance at life as well. And we moved right into the Bridgeport neighborhood. My mom did data entry. My dad worked at a Chinese takeout restaurant. And they did that for the last couple of decades. As immigrant parents, you never brag about your work because everyone has the same kind of work. Like, it's blue-collar jobs, so you don't go around bragging like, oh, I'm a takeout restaurant chef. No, you brag about your kids. In an Asian household, it is a shame and honor culture. There is a lot of pressure in trying to hold up that dream that the family has. Not only was I not doing well in school, I wasn't very sociable. My best friend was the Saturday morning cartoons. There was a lot of depression. I was first introduced to Jesus around junior high. Peers of mine were playing basketball in the church in Chinatown, and I just decided to tag along. This guy would share a Bible story, talk about Jesus, and I would be that kid with his arms crossed saying, oh, will you just please hurry up? You know, I want to play ball. My parents view Jesus Christ no different than the Tooth Fairy, Santa Claus, or the Easter Bunny. But my parents loved that I was going to church because they believed that developing social skills were important. That summer, they were hosting a camp. One of the speakers, he just started talking about this idea of emptiness, and we tried to fill it with all these different things. He had a lock, and he was fumbling through all these different keys, like, oh, this doesn't work, this doesn't work, this doesn't work, this doesn't work. And then one key finally unlocks the lock. And when I heard that, that emptiness was so real for me. All that I've been experiencing, the loneliness, the depression, the rejection. This is also where the speaker, talked about John 10:10, that Jesus has come to give you life and give you life to the full. That's become my life verse, that I want life in the full. I want life with Jesus Christ. And this is where my parents turned from liking me going to church to me never going to church again. They could see just by my investment in time that it was something that I was really engaged in. And that made my parents, who are not believers, very nervous and scared because they felt like their son was being brainwashed. Again, I did not do well academically, so my choices for high school were not very great. I signed up for the top tier schools as well, just to see what would happen. And one of them, Lane Tech High School, responded back and gave me an acceptance letter. So I go to Lane. I was surrounded by other high schoolers like me that were so excited about their faith. I found out a year after I graduated of why I got into Lane. And the counselor said to me, Kensen, you were a mistake. I was like, what are you talking about? So we thought you were a neighborhood kid, so that's how you got accepted. But I know it wasn't an accident. God was stepping into my life to put me in a position to grow and to know who Jesus is. I went to University of Illinois at Chicago. I finished with bioengineering, and for the next couple of years, I worked. It wasn't giving me life. I was getting written up all the time, but I really wanted to make my parents proud and to honor the dream they had for me. I'm struggling through work, but the one thing that I was consistently doing and doing with joy was that as soon as 5 o'clock hit, I was right back at the church serving. I never, ever considered becoming a pastor just because it was so clear in my mind that my life was going to be my parents' dream. And there was a lot of pushback. They were worried that I would have the life that they had. A life that would struggle, a life of insecurity. After just praying about it, just had to tell my family this is what's going to happen. That was by far the hardest moment that I had, because I knew that when I had to tell my parents that I wanted to go into vocational ministry, that I wanted to be a pastor, that their dreams would have to die. But this is what I really believe that God wanted for me, that as I prayed and just see how God was just lining my life up, and when I wasn't doing anything well, the one thing I was doing well was actually serving Him, through ministry. My first pastoral role was actually in the same church that I came to know Jesus through. I would see guys just like me sitting there like this, all in the back corner, and I realized that is who I was. This church in Chinatown, great church, but as you can imagine from being in one church for a very long time, like it's just like, God, might there be something different? So January of 2010, I jumped on staff at Park, and that's been the story ever since. My parents have never ever said I love you to me. Doesn't mean that they don't love me. I know they love me. Just a few years ago, I took my family out to Toronto. So I'm at this corner and we're just standing there and we're just waiting for my mom to get her groceries, and I'm standing there and my dad looks at me and says, "You're a good man." I was like, "What'd you just say?" "You're a good man. I'm so glad we brought you to church." I'm not even sure if my dad knew the impact of those words. It brought so much joy to my heart to know, first off, that they were able to see that Christ was not a hobby, that Christ wasn't just some sort of cult or something that brainwashed me, but they were able to see that I have been transformed, that I have a new life, a fulfilling life in Christ. You know, as I have a chance to think back on this journey, from where this little, 12-year-old kid that was lonely and sad and rejected, that now I can say that in Christ, I'm accepted, I'm loved, I'm known. That's probably a big reason of what just drives me to do ministry, is to be able to see people like me, that had stories like me, to now have a story of new life, a story of a life and life to the fullest.